Hello beautiful people, welcome to the channel. The Witchy Goth here, hope you're doing well. Today's video is looking at the Marilyn Manson case again. There has been an update to the case. I'm going to read through the article from the Euronews that I have found. This was published a week ago. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to do this video up until today due to the fact that I've been studying and working on my next essay for my degree. Anyway, I'm going to go through this article. I'm also going to discuss a few things in between the article as well. So Marilyn Manson cleared of SA charges, accuser Evan Rachel Wood responds. As I say, this story is by David Moriquand and it's a week old. Prosecutors have said that they will not file charges against shock rocker Marilyn Manson after a years-long investigation of allegations of SA and DV. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman said the allegations are too old under the law and the evidence is not sufficient to charge the 56-year-old artist whose legal name is Brian Warner. Now, I'd just like to remind everybody that the statute of limitations in the USA is a lot shorter than here in the United Kingdom. Here in the United Kingdom, there is no statute of limitations. So if you are alleging Grape against a person, it doesn't matter if it's from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you can still lay a charge against that person. In America, it doesn't work that way. So back to the article. We have determined that allegations of DV fall outside of the statute of limitations, and we cannot prove charges of SA beyond a reasonable doubt, Hochman said. We recognise and applaud the courage and resilience of the women who came forward to make reports and share their experiences, and we thank them for their cooperation and patience with the investigation. This is where it becomes so unfair for women going through this. Many women do not report Grape in the first place because they're embarrassed, they think they were to blame, or many other reasons. When they do report those charges, often they are not handed over to the Crown Prosecution Services here in the United Kingdom because there is insufficient evidence. Grape, SA, SV, DV are the only crimes where the victim has to supply the evidence. Every other crime, the police go and source that evidence. I know this from my own experience. And they've said here they recognise and applaud the courage and the resilience of the women who came forward. There were quite a few women that came forward here. How can all of those women not be recognised for this? All of those women have now been told, no, we're not going ahead with this. And a lot of people who follow Manson, who are fans of his, will be saying, well, he's not guilty. This does not mean that he's not guilty. What it means is that the charges are out of the scope of the statute of limitations. That is the problem. Nearly 4 years after the investigation began, then District Attorney George Gascon said on the 9th of October that his office was pursuing new leads that added to the already extensive file that authorities had amassed. So here's the previous DA stating that they've already got a mountain of evidence against him and they had new leads that they were working on. But the new DA that came in has then said, no, we're not going to go ahead with it. We can only speculate as to why. I have my own thoughts there. LA County Sheriff's detectives said early in 2021 that they were investigating Manson for incidents between 2009 and 2011 in West Hollywood, where Manson lived at the time. The probe included a search warrant that was served on his West Hollywood home. The case was initially turned over to prosecutors in September 2021, but the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office requested more evidence gathering and the investigation resumed. Now, if they had requested more evidence, They didn't throw it out. They said, no, we want a bit more evidence here. So again, we come back to the fact that the new DA, who I believe was installed earlier this year, has turned around and said, no, we're not going to pursue this further. And again, we can only surmise why. We are very pleased that after a thorough and incredibly lengthy review of all of the actual evidence, the district attorney has concluded what we knew and expressed from the start: Brian Warner is innocent, his attorney Howard King said in a statement. Now, I want to remind everybody that obviously Howard King, his attorney, works for Manson. He is going to say that. That is what he's being paid to do. He's being paid to tell people Manson is innocent. This is where the truth and the lie becomes blurred, because the lawyer for Manson is saying, no, he's not guilty. Again, he's being paid to say that. But the evidence that the previous DA was looking at, he had new leads. He was gathering new evidence. The identities of the women police and prosecutors spoke to were not revealed, but Game of Thrones actress Esme Bianco, who sued Manson in a case that has been settled, so it's been settled. So she sued him, that case has been settled, said she was part of the criminal investigation. Before the decision not to prosecute, she said she criticised how long the process was taking at a rally for Hochman, who was elected soon after. And that is the big problem with Grape cases, SV, DV, SA charges, is that it takes years for these cases to get to court. So many women in the first place don't report them because they're embarrassed, because they are going to be told it's their fault, and maybe they think it's their fault. And the embarrassment comes from other people accusing them of, well, that person wasn't like that, they wouldn't do that to you. Behind closed doors, you never know what is going on unless you are in the room. Other cases that happen are not always handed over to the district attorney, or in the UK, the criminal prosecution services, because there is insufficient evidence. Grape, DV, SA and SV are the only crimes where the victim, later survivor, has to provide the evidence. All other crimes, the police search for that evidence. I know this because I've been there. Almost 4 years ago, I did what victims of Grape are supposed to do. I went to the police, she said on the 10th of October. I described to them in agonising detail how the rock musician Brian Warner, better known by his stage name Marilyn Manson, had raped and abused me over the course of our relationship. Bianco said she gave investigators hundreds of pieces of evidence, including photos of her body covered in bites, bruises and knife wounds, emails and text messages, threats to her immigration status. In her lawsuit, Bianco alleged sexual, physical and emotional abuse and said that Manson violated human trafficking law by bringing her to California from England for non-existent roles in music videos and in movies. Whilst I am deeply disappointed by the decision of the district attorney to bring charges in the case against Brian Warner, I am sadly not surprised. Me either. Bianco said in a statement released by her lawyer. Once again, our justice system has failed survivors, not the individual prosecutors and detectives who worked for years on this case, but the system that made them do so with one hand tied behind their collective backs. And that is the problem. That the patriarchal men who are pretty much in charge of the legal systems all around the world view these kind of charges as false, because a lot of times they may well have committed these kinds of crimes themselves. And it's all about protecting men. It's all about coercing women. It's all about pushing women down. In 2021, Manson's former fiancée, Westworld actress Evan Rachel Wood, named him as her abuser for the first time in an Instagram post. Now, I want you to remember that she did not name him For a very long time, there was speculation about who it was, but she did not name him until that time. Wood and Manson's relationship became public in 2007 when he was 38 and she was 19. Look at that age difference. Look at that age difference. That's grooming. That is a tactic of a groomer, is to choose somebody who is younger than them, who is innocent, who does not have the worldly experience, and especially in the music industry. And they were briefly engaged in 2010 before breaking up. He started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years, Wood said. Manson replied on Instagram that these were horrible distortions of reality. Distortions. His reality or her reality? He sued Wood, saying she and another woman fabricated accusations against him and convinced others to do the same. A judge threw out significant sections of the suit. Then in November, Manson agreed to drop it and pay Wood's attorney fees. And he has had to do some community service as well. Now, I'll link the video footage of him in that court case, because when you see it, have a look at his face. Have a look at the worry on his face. If he dropped those charges, why did he drop those charges if he thought that he was innocent? Wood released a statement saying she is grateful for authorities' 4-year investigation into the matter and endlessly proud of more than the dozen survivors who have spoken up, adding that the case's resolution is evidence that violent crimes should not have an expiration date. And I agree, completely agree. There shouldn't be an expiration date, because we know that the perpetrator will go on to commit the crimes again, similar crimes, and often taking it even further. My lawyer and I were advised by the deputy district attorneys and the sheriff deputies who investigated the case that there was compelling evidence to support our claims, but that the statute of limitations prevents many of those crimes from being prosecuted, Wood wrote on her private Instagram. We always knew that the statute of limitations would be a barrier, which is why we created the Phoenix Act, so that other victims wouldn't have to experience this outcome. Now, she did speak out about the Phoenix Act and she did fight for that. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below, so you can go and have a look at what that was all about. The Phoenix Act came from a collaboration with former California Assembly member Eduardo Garcia and Sen. Susan Rubio was passed unanimously in 2020 to extend the statute of limitations in domestic v cases to 5 years. So it was 3 years previously, now it's been extended to 5. Personally, I think that there should not be a limitation on those crimes because, as I've already said, women often don't come forward because they're afraid. They are perhaps being pursued by the person who has committed those crimes against them. Perhaps they're being bullied. Perhaps the flying monkeys are bullying them and other people around that person, because nobody wants to believe that this person who seemed so nice at the time was guilty and has done these things. Many grapists and SV, SA, DV abusers seem nice on the outside. And that's why women often fall in love with them and these things happen. And then they blame themselves because, you know, were they to blame? Was it their fault that they were raped? The Phoenix Act, I've mentioned that already, Wood testified in front of the state Senate in April 2019 to support the bill. Unfortunately, the Phoenix Act cannot help in cases which occurred before it was passed, but I hope this shines a light on why it's so important to advocate for better laws. Wood stated, "Evidence of violent crimes should not have an expiration date. I'm grateful for the work law enforcement has done, and I'm endlessly proud of the survivors who risked everything to protect others by speaking the truth." And this is the point. She was 19 when he started to groom her. He was 38. That is a huge age gap, especially for a person of Manson's capabilities. He is known for his shock rock, for his stage presence. And while that might seem exciting to a young girl of 19, she perhaps at that stage did not know how to say no, did not understand how this all worked. And what often happens in cases like this is the grooming. It's the love bombing that takes place from the narcissistic personality type, of which we can guarantee that Manson is. You know, he has stated himself in footage that he likes to shape women into what he wants them to be. He likes to mold them. Those were his words. He likes to mold them. And he said he's a misogynist. Although he said he wouldn't call himself a misogynist, but he likes to mold women. Now, he did date Dita Von Teese and a number of other women who have not come forward with claims of this. And I would like to say that there are women, some women, who are stronger and who will recognize these things and who won't allow it to happen. They have very clear boundaries. Dita Von Teese, burlesque dancer, has more than enough noose about her to block those sort of things from happening. But somebody at the age of 19 doesn't. They don't have that about them. They don't have that ability to realize and to see what is happening. It is unfair that women have to suffer through this misogynistic patriarchal system that we have to live with. It's wrong. And this is why we fight for equality. Because we know that the vast majority of those men who are accused of SADV, SH and Grape get away with it, and they go on to commit it again and again and again. And this is why it is so important that women come forward as soon as they can. Find a friend, speak to somebody who can help you, speak to a charity, Refuge or Grape Crisis, and I'll put the contact details for them into the description box below as well. Also, check out Channel 4's 3-part documentary on Manson. They interview a lot of people from his life, as well as a previous band member who does not necessarily admit that it was happening, but the intonation is there. Let me know your thoughts below. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of Manson fans saying, no, but he's innocent. See, this case has, been dropped. Remember, it's been dropped because it falls outside of the statute of limitations. So the only way for him to prove his innocence would be to go to court and for it to be proclaimed by a judge or a jury that he is innocent. Dropping the charges does not mean that. So please, please, please keep that in mind. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you next time. Under his eye.